All right, Shonner. You want to know what your book, How to Roleplay the Hard Way, changed about my D&D game? It was roleplay. Your book brought to light the fact that I was not really roleplaying and that the way that I was running the game was actively impeding and preventing my players from roleplaying. And as a dungeon master, that's not what I should be doing. My job as the dungeon master should be to facilitate roleplay, not impede it. And your book helped me make that transition away from being a control freak DM to more of a DM that's there to accommodate and facilitate the role play of the players at my table. So, in detail, what is different is the absolute clampdown on second person narration. No more of that. I still do occasionally use second person narration, but it's by design. So in things like when the player is experiencing a supernatural attack that impedes their character's agency, I will use second person narration to drive home the invasiveness of the attack upon their character. So, like for instance, when a banshee is terrifying them, I'll tell the player that you feel you feel a terror, an icy cold terror piercing through your mind, and the player will typically at that point take that as a cue for a saving throw, and then they'll roll their die for the saving throw, and they'll narrate the result of whether they succeed or fail from that point, and take the appropriate actions as the mechanics dictate. And if necessary, I take control over the character. For spellcasting, spellcasting used to be at the table. It used to be very I cast magic missile, I cast invisibility, I cast the boring horrible stuff that you see in every game that gets posted on YouTube. Now spellcasting is much more about it's about roleplay. So every spell it's a recipe for roleplay. It tells you what you need to do to cast the spell. So you look, the player or the DM, me, we look at what it takes. Does it take a verbal, somatic, and material components, and then the caster, whether that be me, the DM, or the player, role plays the use of all three components. So an example would be I reach into my spell pouch, I grab a piece of guar gum, I pluck an eyelash from my lid, and I drive the eyelash into the gum and then place it on my forehead. Then there'll be some Harry Potter type language, and then I'll adjudicate, then Kinsar, he turns invisible. So that would then be the spell cast, as opposed to, I'm going to cast invisibility. Same thing for things like lockpicking, right? Lockpicking, it's the expectation is that the player engages the lock as if they were actually there. They don't go, I want a lockpick, and then they roll a die, and then, did I make it? It's much more, I get out my lockpicks, I get my eye to the level with the lock, and I stick my pick in, and I start to work the first tumbler, and I, as the DM, I will narrate the response of the tumbler. And at some point during this process, the player will roll the die of their own volition. I will not ask for it. We at our table now, there's no asking for rolls. I, the DM, do not ask for rolls, and the player does not ask for rolls. And then the die is rolled, and then it's adjudicated. One of the other things that's really changed too is that I'm leaning a lot more into passive skill checks as opposed to the luck die roll. So I'll use the passive check rule that's in the player's handbook to just let the players role play, to not stop the game to roll some dice. So if the players are role playing and they're in a dungeon looking for a secret door or something, I'm not going to stop the game for the players to start rolling dice. I'm just going to reveal the secret door through narration, and they'll figure it out. They don't need a die roll to tell them that there is a door if we can roleplay it. So that's things like perception, and perception is still in the game a little bit, but investigation's gone. Investigation, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist anymore in our game. Insight's gone. There's no insight roles. Nobody does insight. It's, when you're role playing, you don't need to give players, cheat code clues to figure out what they're doing. They put it together themselves. They are their own insight, and that's really what it should be. Insight is something that, it comes from within, and it comes from an experience. And if you, as the dungeon master, and the players are all role playing, everybody's having an experience, and you don't need to roll a die to have insight. It just goes away. Investigation, I think I already mentioned that, but yeah, investigation is along the same lines. I do the same with survival a lot. Some of my players are they're experienced in wilderness survival, and some of them that aren't. They've watched YouTube videos on it, because their characters are wilderness survival experts. So they go and they watch YouTube videos on how to do wilderness survival stuff, and they role play it. They role play that, and so when they're role playing things that they do, I'm not going to, roll dice to have them roll dice to see if their character, who is an expert in wilderness survival, can build a fire, unless there's a real opposition, unless there's something extraordinary about trying to build that fire, like it's windy and it's rainy, and it's just not cooperative. But when it's normal circumstances, there's just no need to roll dice for all those things if players are role playing. So yeah, that's what your book changed. Is your book changed my game into a role-playing game instead of a shitty video game, which is really what most Dungeons and Dragons is when you're not role-playing. So thanks again, youShonner. Great book. Really enjoy it. I read it again from time to time to pick up new insights, as I'm currently running 2 games. One game is with more experienced players, and one game is with new players. I got one of my experienced players in the new person game, and in the new person game, everybody's role playing. That's just how we introduce the game to them, is that it's a role playing game. You act like your character. My experienced player set the tone from the very beginning. We just had the second session today, and she came in and she set the tone from the very first moment that the characters were in the world playing, and everybody fell in line. And there's been, they're new, so there's a little bit of Mother May, because they don't know how to play the game yet. But there wasn't any Mother May I at all in the session that we had today. So that was very gratifying to see that level of progress, and to see that level of agency and play being enjoyed by players who are new to the game. And thanks again. If you hadn't written that book, I would probably would have lost interest in the game again, as I have over the years. I haven't been playing consistently. I play periodically because it's I get the bug, it's fun, and then it's honestly it wears off fast, because once you get off the luck high from the 20-sided die, it stops being entertaining anymore. But I don't see the interest dying down anymore. There's too much going on. The role play opens up too much in the experience that is not tied to die roll mechanics. So, thanks for showing me how awesome this game could be. I do find it hard to believe that I would be the only person doing Dungeons and Dragons like this, but I don't know, I could be wrong. Anyway, thanks again, youShonner. I really appreciate it.